Okay, all right.
All right. Well, welcome everybody. It is June 24th, 2020 at 7 p.m. This is a town hall meeting to introduce our new city manager, incoming city manager, Chris Eldridge. Before we get started, I would just like to say a huge thank you to our police chief, Chuck Atkinson, who has filled in as a city manager for the last 6 months. He has done an amazing job and definitely has held things together while we have been dealing with a number of unexpected challenges this year. And so with that, I'm not gonna do a lot of talking. Chris Eldridge, I will just say, is someone who is and Tim, I'm gonna mute you just so that and I'm gonna mute Tammy. If you're not on mute already, just hit mute on your button. I think everybody is. I just heard a little bit of an echo. But anyway, Chris, when we were looking at resumes for city managers, his definitely stood out as one of the top ones. And when we met him in the interviews, his breadth of experience just blew me away. And I think a lot of the other council members felt the same way. We think that he's going to be a great fit. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. And maybe, Chris, if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your history and kind of the chain of events that have led from, starting out as a kid who went to school in Tucker to, to where you are today.
Sure, I'm happy to. So yes, I actually grew up in Tucker, off Lawrenceville Highway, went to Brockett Elementary School and then straight to Shamrock High School. There weren't middle schools and junior highs then. So I was an 8th grade high school student. Went off to school at Appalachian State. Chose that between App State and Florida State. When I found out Florida State didn't have air conditioning in all the dorms, I decided for App State. So always kind of been a mountain person anyway. Got out of school, worked at a newspaper for a little while. Decided that wasn't the career path, so started working on MPA. And while I was working on MPA, I started out as the first city manager of a small town called Liberty. Worked there for 4 years, finished up my MPA at Clemson, went to Pickens, a little larger town, county seat in the upstate, and then went to the coast, city of Georgetown, which is similar size to Doraville. And then last 7 years, Horry County, very large geographical county, diverse in different ways than Doraville is. But a lot going on, a lot of growth. Some of it's you're just kind of holding on. On professional side, county government's difficult, just the way it's structured. A lot of elected department heads. It's it's kind of built for dysfunction, and you do the best you can going through that. So each job I've enjoyed. I enjoyed municipal government the most. Each place has been completely different. I've always been real careful to make sure that I'm pursuing the policies that council wants and their priorities. It's my job to make happen what council wants to happen. So that's what I'm going to do in Doraville. So, I enjoyed visiting. The more I met with council, the more interested I was in the job. The process has been different just because of coronavirus, but it actually worked out great. The first round of interviews gave me an hour with each council member, and to where I could really get to know each council member and kind of their thoughts on the future of Doraville and what they expected from me. So enjoyed that. I have friends, other city manager, but they're like, "Oh gosh, 6 hours. How are you gonna make it through that?" But it really was an enjoyable experience, and I would recommend to councils going forward. I mean, that's the way to really interview candidates and get to know them. So my interests are always in getting things done. Been big on accountability with employees and myself. getting projects over the finish line. I always try to be fair, but I do expect performance out of employees, and I'm clear to them what I expect, and they either perform or they don't. So I think there's a lot of fun things in store for Doraville. It's in a unique place. It helped me, having grown up there, to have an idea of Doraville and just the greater Atlanta area, and I've kept up with it over the years. My parents still live up out of town, and I read the AJC most days, so still got an idea of some of the politics and growth issues and everything else. So is that kind of what you're thinking, Mayor?
Yeah, maybe some things, because I think, when we were thinking about a city manager and what we heard in the town halls, the town hall that we held, was there being a desire for us to get someone who really who had worked with some big projects and understood how to manage growth and how to attract growth. And maybe if you could talk about a few projects that you've worked on, just to give people an idea of what you've done in the past.
Sure. A lot of it's just being creative, finding a way to get to that end. I had a fun project in Liberty. That's my first job. We did a tax increment finance district. I was able to get the support of the county and the school district, and we pieced it all together. And it's a small town. They wanted a new grocery store, so we got them in Ingalls, and worked with the school district and the county, and each governmental entity got something in the deal. That was fun. It's a good project. Pickens, we did, that's fulfilling, a lot of community spirit there. We did some volunteer work to build a trail system at our rec complex. We had over 100-acre park that we developed, and we secured grants. We used a local hospitality tax, built a 22,000 square foot gym. But out of the most fulfilling was the trail work. We did an outdoor classroom, did those things. We had a huge playground that donations, purchased the equipment, volunteers erected it. It's that feeling in the community that I enjoyed there. Georgetown, they had a huge drainage project that had been languishing for 20 years. Got it done in my 3 years, cobbled together about 5 different funding sources, even got money from FEMA, and got that completed. Horry County, we use same thing, like you have SPLOST. We have capital project sales tax here as well, dedicated towards roads. Finished up $600 million in projects after I was hired, and successfully got another referendum passed. Those projects, as road projects always do, they had issues. We had environmental issues we worked through. One of my proudest things was we did our own wetlands mitigation bank here, and Horry County protected 3,500 acres of land that adjoins an existing heritage preserve. So that's one of my proudest accomplishments, and it's also one that probably the public won't fully appreciate here for another 5-10 years. It's a hard concept for some people to understand. We were told we were buying swampland and what a waste of money and everything else, but Horry County stands to net $25 to $30 million off of those wetlands credits, and the land's protected forever. So it was a real win-win. So that was fun. I've watched development in Horry County that is not controlled, so you can learn as much from how not to do it. Horry County, Myrtle Beach area has always been boom bust. It's gone in cycles, kind of like a mini Vegas maybe. And finally, Horry County was starting to make some strides to look at some of those issues to control the growth. But a lot of tract homes been thrown up here over the years, and the will on county council here wasn't there to help control some of that and manage the quality. So some of that will come back, I think, to haunt the county here 20-30 years from now. But like I said, you have to have the council and the leadership to want those things. So you don't always learn from the model ways. Sometimes you learn from the way not to do things.
You mentioned the range of different places that you've worked at. I think that one of the hesitations that we had when we were talking with you, and something that I think the council generally had to reckon with, was this, the fact that you're coming from someplace that's so much bigger than Doraville. And so I was hoping maybe you could talk about just, how Doraville fits within your range of experiences, and how you're going to approach managing a city of this size compared to the county.
Right. It fits the majority of my career, up until I went to Horry County. When it comes to what I enjoyed most, it was those jobs. Maybe part of it's being 49, and I don't know. I want to go to work every day and enjoy where I'm going to work. Have fun doing it. When you're at a larger organization, it's a totally different way of managing, and it's just, in many ways, it's neat to be a part of those big projects, but it's very different too, and it can chew you up. So definitely not ready to retire, ready to work. I always want to get stuff done. What was important to me, looking at areas, was to make sure I was going somewhere where I wasn't just on cruise control or holding the reins. It's important to me to check off and get things done. And I used to have a mayor that always preached to me about that some people there can be a lot of action, but not a lot of production. So that's something I enjoy and focus on, and and try to push and encourage employees to have the same attitude. That's who I want to be around, is people who want to get to yes instead of fighting tooth and nail to get there. Some people work twice as hard to get to know.
Cool. Well, I've got a few questions that people have emailed me, and then I'm going to see, since we've got a lot of people in here, see what questions people in the room have as well. But one of the first questions that someone sent me was that Doraville is a city that's got a very diverse population of residents and business owners. A lot of them are first-generation immigrants who have limited English capabilities. There might be other diverse challenges to communication. Do you have any experiences that would help you approach these populations?
Yeah, I think first is just making sure the communication's there, and don't take anything for granted as far as making those assumptions. I've had experience in the past. They come from another country where things do operate differently, and they have different expectations and don't understand. We're there to help. Don't have our hand out. So I have definitely dealt with that. Even had one horror story, somebody here that had flown a state legislator over there, and he got paid from some business in Atlanta for a zoning application. They thought you had to bring somebody, it was just, those misunderstandings hurt. So, those are the things that have to be careful, to be clear, work with those business owners and residents. And, sometimes it just takes working harder, and that's what we're there for. But that's what makes Doraville unique. That was one of the questions when the council members just talking about worrying about redevelopment and losing that character for Doraville, and how do we protect it. So that's one I've been kicking around in my head, trying to think of ways, not only protect it, but maybe enhance it, and make that even more of a drawing card and part of what everybody associates with Doraville.
Someone in the chat wanted to know, what do you consider your biggest accomplishments?
That international drive project that I talked about, doing the wetlands mitigation. We also, we did a lot of that in-house. I was proud of the employees that got out there and did that. At the time, there was a lot of talk about public safety employees, which are very important. But I've always had great respect for the public works, stormwater employees. Everybody's out there serving the public. And, in that instance, public work employees were out 24/7, round the clock, working under lights to get that project started. They're also always side by side during hurricanes. We had a huge condo fire, 100-something units, 20-something buildings, and everybody's out there working as a team. So that's something I've always stressed, is working as a team. Georgetown, we were able to get a lot of projects done. We had a group that spun out of the chamber. We did a charrette where we sit around and talk about what you want to accomplish for the city, and identified specific projects, and we checked most of them off. We did a really nice wayfinding project, rebuilt the Harbor Walk. Good stuff. Got Winyah Auditorium finally done. So, each one, and it doesn't have to be a huge project. Like I talked earlier, just some of the volunteer projects mean a lot. If somebody has a hand in making something happen, they've got pride in it and keep an eye on it. That trail project was one of them, but I remember another time we redid the concrete on the dugouts at the ball fields, and I was pushing a bull float, finishing concrete. Never done that before, and it was fun learning. So, I like getting out there and doing that. And I'll be there right by everybody. I've always done ride-alongs with the police department. Any kind of crisis event, I'm there. They've always seen me there. I'm the one early in the morning at City Hall to make sure people can get there on the road. And sometimes I got to remind myself, okay, you got here, but you got four-wheel drive, and you still got to have a little bit of common sense. But yeah. So all those things I've been proud of, and I've enjoyed working with council members. Each council member is different, and you get to learn them, and that's part of the fun of the job too. Is getting to know a community and your council.
Another question someone asked is, what qualities do you look for in employees, and what's your approach going to be towards the employees that the city has today?
I've always been one to look for the qualities you can't teach. So want someone that's dedicated, someone that's hardworking, honest, upfront, driven. You can teach the other things, the facts of the job or anything else, but if you don't have those qualities, you really just you don't teach character issues. You don't train character issues. At least that's what I believe. So that's what I look for. I want people that are driven. It doesn't bother me if they don't have a lot of experience. I think it's helpful to any organization to have folks on staff that are looking to move up. And the way they do it is they accomplish things for the city of Doraville, and that's a win-win for both. And if we can start recruiting some good folks in, and they move on bigger, better things, it just makes it easier to bring other folks in, and it keeps your organization fresh, and people can push each other. I'm big on teamwork, team effort. Our paychecks all come from Doraville, so we're all there to help each other.
Okay. So I guess another question that I've received is about the experience of interacting with City Hall, and the fact that when people go there, a lot of times the experience is that it's just difficult to get attention from somebody. I know you have not really experienced what it's like and everything, but maybe you could talk through the process that you're going to go through to examine our processes, and what's your approach going to be for trying to improve overall customer experience, whether the customer is a resident, business owner, developer, whoever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it doesn't matter who it is. They should get good customer service. No patience for not doing that. So no, we'll do that. I've looked, I I need to get in there for some of these things, but just some of the responses and just a couple of emails I've gotten last couple of days and talking to council. We'll definitely work on accountability, timing, same with our contracts that we have, some of our contract services, and put some measurables to it. But no, anybody walking in City Hall should be greeted, taken care of. A lot of times I've seen employees, part of the problem is just be honest. If we can't do it, tell someone we can't do it and why. Just a little extra time goes a long ways with citizens, contractors, anyone else. So that's one thing I've always stressed. Give the full story. We can't do that. Well, takes you a couple extra minutes. If it's truly something on private property or something else we can't do, explain that. And most people, they respond to it. So just takes a little extra effort, a little extra time, and it goes a real long way. So I expect I'll be looking at processes, looking at how we can improve. But we're here to serve the citizens of Doraville. That's our job. We want to make everybody as happy as possible and make the mayor and council look good.
All right. Another question someone sent in through the chat was, what's your experience working with code enforcement? And this person also asked, are you a Doraville resident?
No, not yet. So would like to be. So that's where I'm looking. Code enforcement, I'm definitely a believer. And code enforcement in my terminology is as far as property maintenance, junk cars, those things. I do believe it's important as far as maintaining quality of neighborhoods, keeping property values up, and just protecting people and the value of their own homes. So Georgetown was strong. We kept that going there. I made it an emphasis. And typically counties aren't that progressive with those type of issues, but we got it going in Horry County. We actually started tearing down dilapidated homes. We seeded it with about $1 million. And I think first round we tore down 20, and we started quarterly bringing another 20 or 30 to council. After we went through about a round or two, most property owners started taking care of the issues themselves, and we're cleaning them up. But code enforcement's important. It also comes back to protecting renters from the landlords. But yeah, all that's, yeah, I'm a believer. It's not fun. It's not fun telling somebody to clean up their yard or do anything else, but I do believe it's important. Take one or two. I say I'm going to be looking around for a place to live, and if it's a bunch of junk in the yard next door, that's a house I'll pass over. So that's just reality and what happens. So anyway, yep, definitely believer in code enforcement. Horry County, that's what I was saying, was different. We called the department code enforcement. That was really building codes inspection. So it was kind of a misnomer. But yes, very important in the city.
Another one that I got was, and this was sent to everybody in the chat, and you may not have yet, but this is kind of a hot button issue. Have you traveled down Oak Cliff Road? What were your thoughts? What ideas do you have for entrances to our neighborhood? For the entrances to our neighborhoods?
I may have. I did wander around a good bit. So it'll take me a little while to get to know every street. I don't know if that's something council has done, if y'all are maintaining entrances to neighborhoods or how you support that. But all that's important, I know, to the owners in there. Typically my experience has been HOAs maintain their entrances, but
yeah, Oak Cliff Road is kind of a major entrance into the city off of 85, and it goes into a neighborhood that doesn't have an HOA. So it's just, city has done a lot of work to it, and probably does need to be looked at just holistically as we move forward.
Well, that was the issue. I know we discussed just on whole landscaping and general appearance of the town. Will be a focus. I'd like for people to know when they're in Doraville, set ourselves apart.
So another question was, what does success look like for you in the first 90 to 120 days and then in 6 months beyond the bonus
All right.
criteria?
Yeah, for me, it's, you just got to hit the ground running. I got to learn as fast as I can. We definitely do have to fill some positions, get people on board, and got to get them moving and learning quick too. If it's not internal. But I know we've got with New Peachtree, you got the Doraville site. We got to work on parks, the recreation department. I know with current situation in the country, probably we'll spend some time with police chief and going through our policies and what we have in place. So, success is, checking those boxes and, making sure I'm running the town. So, getting things done as far as customer service. I would hope the people of Doraville would be able to see a change. I mean, that's the goal. And we got to do it all in the middle of the pandemic. So it's challenging times everywhere.
Have you been involved with something similar to what GDOT is doing here with bus rapid transit, et cetera? I think talked about the toll lanes that they're talking about building, that they're going to build adjacent to 285.
Nothing on that scale. I went to a P3 conference in Dallas a couple years ago, and just look at those public-private partnerships, and most of them are the tolling lanes because they're the cheapest to build and the easiest to generate revenue. So those are the primary projects. There was a large anti-tolling sentiment in South Carolina. The one tolling project failed up in Greenville, and the one in Hilton Head barely made it. So not a lot. My experience would be just learning, but not firsthand. It seems like it's been successful. They're able to pay for the roads, and I've even seen, since my time, it's been 30 years, but the traffic control at the on ramps and everything else is new too. So, Atlanta's becoming one of the largest cities in the country. So they're dealing with those issues. Rapid transit, we did have a transit system, nothing like MARTA. Transit systems are always tough. I don't know any of them that make money. So it's, we supported it as a county, did the best we could. And, it was just always hard to get the funding there for it. They provided service. There was and same with a lot of mass transit, it was to get workers to work. So in this market, it was to the beach and work the hospitality industry. So transit's difficult, but it's a big part of Atlanta now. So that drives housing and everything else. So it's pretty neat. I mean, it's all fun stuff. I mean, I like to do something different each time. So one job I learned electric utility, Myrtle Beach, we had an international airport. So I was able to learn all about the airport industry. So that's kind of why I'm in this business. I don't want to do the same thing every day.
I understand that. I guess in addition to reading questions, so if you aren't comfortable speaking in a group like this, feel free to send me a private chat, which you can do using the chat icon at the bottom of the screen. However, if you do want to speak, I think that's great too. Just use the raise hand function, which also should be an icon at the bottom of the screen, and I will call on you. And the first person who had her hand up was Connie Cody. And so Connie, I'm unmuting you. And I thought I was unmuting you. Okay, you're unmuted, so please go ahead and speak. Connie, are you there? She might have had a technical issue, so apologies for that. Does anyone else have any questions for Mr. Eldridge? I guess I have another question in the chat. What's your vision of the Downtown Development Authority's role in the city, and how do you see working with that board? And I guess also, are you familiar with what a Downtown Development Authority in Georgia is? I guess is another question.
Not completely, no. Worked with the board. We've had a public-private partnership here for economic development. But as far as their resources, no, not familiar.
Well, Mr. Geierman might be able to give a better explanation than I can, but my understanding is that in Georgia, local governments can't give any sort of incentives to businesses to come in and redevelop a property or make other changes and to the streetscapes or whatever. So the way that the state has gotten around this is creating an entity called Downtown Development Authorities, and they have to operate within a certain boundary to make improvements within that boundary, and they're able to offer certain tax incentives like tax abatements and other incentives, but usually tax abatements that would attract a developer. And a lot of times certain deals don't get done without those abatements. So it's we have not had a very active DDA up until recently, but it's recently been reinvigorated. And so I guess have you dealt with any groups like that in your?
Yeah, it's something similar. South Carolina does the same thing. They call it a fee in lieu of taxes. You can convert the tax rate into a fee. Each local government has different theories on how much they will offer. We had very tight guidelines on the capital investment required for different levels of rebates. A lot of those were tied just on the county level, it was to job creation and, it came to manufacturing, not so much on the retail side. So, it's one of those that I think it's one for council to make a decision each time, just how much to give up. It depends on what your market is, and, a developer will take anything and everything you'll give them.
Well, it's also, in this case, the council doesn't make the decision. It's the DDA makes the decision. The DDA has to be the one to decide. So, but they do need to work in conjunction with the city and kind of making, kind of strategizing. So,
it's just important to not incentivize something that's going to happen anyway, I guess, would be.
Yeah. Makes sense. Another question is, have you worked with libraries before, and are you supportive?
Yes, we have the library system, Horry County. We have multiple libraries. We had a similar situation. I was on the county side of that issue. Myrtle Beach had their own library. The library function was the responsibility of counties. It was a bit of a contentious issue between Myrtle Beach and the county because the county said we got to provide libraries, but we don't have to provide one in your city limits. So it kicked around back and forth, and Myrtle Beach still has their library. So yeah, supportive. Definitely, I think the mission has changed a little bit. More program focused. We use a lot of access to computers, people looking for jobs, doing research, those things. We'd even gone to online books for people to check out through the library. That was being used as well. So, I think there's still a role for libraries, but it has changed. I mean, the digital age definitely has changed some of that for libraries. So, uh, but they can be a big part of the community. There's still plenty of people out there that don't have access to the internet at home or anything else, and that was definitely a good resource for people.
Thank you. All right, our next up, I believe it's Tom Hart, and I'm trying to unmute him right now, so give me just a second. Tom, are you able to hit unmute on your end? Okay, he's unmuted. Okay, go ahead, Tom. Tom, you should be able to speak. Tom? Tom, can you hear me? He's got his hand raised.
I don't see him on here anymore.
He just thought he dropped off, so maybe he had a bad internet connection. All right, well, we'll call on him if he comes back. So another question that's come in, what was so appealing about Doraville versus other cities?
For me, it was part of being a part of the redevelopment, the changes in Doraville. Some of it's personal for me. I wanted to be in a community again. You talk about diverse community. I mean, that is kind of important to me. I wanted to work in a place where I would enjoy living as well. You work where I've worked the last 7 years. It's kind of a cultural desert. So it's just, it's just fun. I mean, there's a lot going on, a lot to do. And I've missed that. I like getting out. I'm not one to sit around at home. Don't sit there and watch TV. I'm a big cyclist, biking. I like going to concerts. That's important to me. I mean, it sounds corny. I'm excited that there's a lot of different restaurants to go to. They're not all chains like Myrtle Beach. It's not the hog trough seafood buffet like we have all over the place here. So, it's those things that I would enjoy, so it's fun I think it will be fun to be part of a community that values that. And, we can build on it. So, when you take a job, some of it's personal reasons too, but I mean, it's a place I want to live. I mean, it'd be fun. So.
All right. Tom, I see you're still sitting there. I've tried messaging you privately. Can you speak now? Okay. Well, just send a message in the chat if you are able to. Another question. Sorry, they're coming through faster, so I've got to scroll back up a little bit.
That's good.
Have you worked in bringing nonprofit and community organizations into a community? As a mother, the lack of these in the city and the support needed for school closures became very apparent.
I mean, definitely have worked with nonprofits. They're good partnerships to make. Oftentimes, a nonprofit can do things that local government can't. So, my experience has been from homelessness here in Horry County, disaster recovery, working with nonprofits. A lot of the success of that is being clear with your expectations on both sides. Because if you get lines crossed, I mean, you're just working against each other. But definitely had successful experiences here. and then if you're having issues, you're having issues. So, we've had problems with Red Cross down here, and Salvation Army was great in some of our disaster responses. And you just got to let them know because, Red Cross took pride in it, and they got their attention. So they went back and worked through some of their staffing and even volunteers and others, and tried to up their service level a little bit to help. So yeah, I've always enjoyed that. I remember years ago talking with Mount Pleasant down there, Charleston. They had some success with volunteers, even helping with some of the city services. They treated, everybody had a job description. If you're a volunteer, you had a job description and you had expectations because the city was relying on you. But that helped clarify that relationship and made it more productive. So yeah, all those are good. I know Myrtle Beach, the city, I wasn't part of this. They still have a very big homeless problem. They used to support some of the nonprofits. They cut back to just supporting one. And we're trying to streamline those efforts just because there were so many different organizations kind of trying to do the same thing. It wasn't the most efficient use of resources. So, sometimes those are not comfortable conversations to have, but I think it's important to have the relationship to where you can, have those frank discussions with people.
Where does hiring staff that is bilingual or multilingual fall within your range of priorities?
Definitely be a plus. I don't know if, somebody said the number of languages spoken in Doraville was it like 20 something? So can't cover it all, but I mean, the more, the better. I mean, that's definitely a quality that would separate an employee from others.
What is your opinion of allowing residents to volunteer and help upkeep and improve city properties and parks post COVID-19?
It kind of goes back to the same thing, the expectations, working together. I mean, there's safety issues too, as far as what equipment we could provide. But I would think there's ways to work together with volunteers. Definitely. And again, it's just great to see people taking pride in their city.
Kind of the person who was asking the questions about the multilingual employees also want to know about, the potential for bringing in translation services. And I think this is from the fact that we do have a pretty large, and we do have a lot of languages here, but I do think one of the largest is Spanish speakers. A lot of times there's a lot of confusion in terms of just getting communication effectively done between the city and this large chunk of the population. So, what would your approach be to bringing in translation services or trying to get more things translated?
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough, Georgetown and Horry County, we had, bilingual police officers. That's not always the case, but it can be the case where you have that need. And, it was always something we were excited if we were able to recruit an employee that did speak Spanish. We had victim advocates. I don't know if Georgia's big on that, but that's a big program of victim advocates. And we always made sure we had a Spanish speaking victim advocate as well. And, so to say it was an employee that worked for the organization, so they'd help, in where we need. Just call them in. If it was somebody in, trying to pull a permit or something else, we could get them on the phone and work through it. So, part of that, again, it just comes down to effort and making it happen. But I would think, with 100-something employees, we'd have the opportunity to have a few people that were bilingual that could always be there to help us.
Well, and I think, and this is just me commenting and maybe, for a longer discussion, but I think some of it goes down to even just making our website more accessible in Spanish and potentially some other languages, as well as, we talked about code enforcement. you know, if code enforcement is going out there, and I do think we have some Spanish speaking code enforcement officers, but if the information that code enforcement is providing is all in English and you're giving it to Spanish speakers, I think that, you know, there's a disconnect there as well. So this is just something I think the city could do better at, is, you know, providing material in different languages and, you know, figuring out a way to do that. But I think that's
Sure.
that's kind of like a longer term.
With technology, I
look at
mean,
things.
so much of that it's so much easier now to do that. You know,
Yeah.
technology wise, we could definitely do better.
So you mentioned the cultural appeal of Doraville. Recently, there's been an initiative to make the arts more accessible in the community. What's your opinion of expanding art opportunities, funding for the arts, and the impact of the arts in the community?
I'm all for expanding funding if my council wants to. So I know that's always a push and shove, and who's responsible for what. You know, it's that those are the choices that, you know, the citizens of Doraville have to make, and council has to make too. You know, if that's a priority, then, you know, that's what we'll do. You know, I saw an email or two about homelessness, and, you know, just who leads that effort, and you know, the way the different levels of government work, everybody will stand on the sidelines until somebody else does it, and once you got it, you got it. So yeah, I agree. But the arts are important. I enjoy it, and like I said, that's, you know, part of the attraction, Doraville in the Atlanta area.
All right, well, Tom Hart has his hand raised again. I'm gonna unmute him. Tom, you're unmuted. Can you speak?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just got out of the hospital, so I don't know how clear this is going to be. Okay. You know, this is to the new city manager. The past city managers have been laboring, I guess, because when they get here, they meet the same 20 people, and the same 20 people give them sort of what's happening in Doraville and where we need to go. And therefore, over the last decade and a half, we've gone nowhere, because it's the same message. It's like some kind of circular logic going on. The second problem is the GM property and its funding, which is, it's so convoluted. I don't think there's anybody in the city that really understands how much money we owe and how much money we're shoveling into the project, because it's represented by a DDA, an IGA with a county, and the county school system doesn't want to support it because they think it's a scam. You've got a CID, you've got loans from every government agency known to mankind, and nobody's watching the store. So what do you intend to do about that? And are if you going to invite people with an opposite voice in to maybe give you some background that maybe you're not going to get from these same 20 people? Thank you.
I'm sure. Always willing to listen to anybody. Part of my job is to get up to speed. Already asked staff to kind of map out these projects, the history, some of the money flow. I know council's getting a briefing on that, I think in July meeting on New Peachtree Road. So for me, you know, it'll be a bit of a history lesson. It's still a good exercise for staff people to go through and map all that out. It's always helpful for me to see it on paper, see the flow. You know, I've always enjoyed even looking at processes, you know, map it out, box to box to box, and how we're getting things done. But yeah, any site like that, you know, I know it's complex. It's controlled by a developer. So, you know, even more so, it'd been nice if, you know, back when the plant closed, if the state had taken control over it and purchased it. So, you know, it does make it tough. You know, you got public money going into a project with a private developer trying to make all the money they can. So, it is complex. You know, and I think everybody, or there is kind of a vision for the property, but still it comes down to, you know, a developer who owns it. So you can push it a little bit one way or another, but you know, you don't have total control if you don't own it. Am I missing anything, Mayor?
I think the other question was about listening to other perspectives. I think you covered that in the beginning. So, so we have a question about kind of a two-part question. Can you talk about whether you've ever worked with community gardens and what kind of recreation programs you've been involved with?
Georgetown, we did community gardens. It was great. Really enjoyed that. We've used a couple of vacant lots. I think we just worked out a dollar lease with the property owner since we were cleaning it up. That was fun. You know, I'd go pick some vegetables myself and pull some weeds. So I think community gardens are great, and they're great educational tools for the kids. Hopefully get past the COVID. That would help too, because it's kind of intergenerational. You know, the older generation, which I guess I'm getting closer to, still remembers gardens and getting out and working and doing. We had one growing up in our backyard in Tucker for years, and I've always grown stuff myself. You know, and it teaches values. It'd be great to have, you know, grandparents out there and kids in the neighborhood and learning a little about where your food comes from. So it's definitely something I believe in. Recreation, yes. Everywhere I've worked, we've provided recreation. It's you know, I believe that's important too. I think sometimes it has been, but I think what little I know, you are doing more adult things. But sometimes communities I've seen get too focused just on kids when it comes to recreation and youth sports, and I'm not trying to address adults as well, because we all need to stay healthy also, and it's good for our own mental health and health in general, to be a part of those. So you know, I'd love to see some team sports for adults as well. So you know, and there's new. I mean, everything's changed. My kids play soccer. You know, I grew up baseball, and you know, lacrosse has become big. So you know, all of that shifts. And I know there's a lot of recreational opportunities in Atlanta. So I would think, you know, we need to find our niche and what fits our facilities.
I think that, so we have another question. Have you had an opportunity to become familiar with the relationships of our cities with surrounding municipalities, the county government, the metro area, and other organizations like the Atlanta Regional Commission?
I know how important it is. That's always been a focus. Whether you're the big dog at the table or not, you know, the regional approach is very helpful. You know, since we're one of the smaller ones, we need partners, and we need to work with those. I've always believed in just sitting down. We did a simple luncheon every other month here in Horry County, just with the city managers, the school district, and we just rotate around, host a lunch, and we talk about issues or just, you know, sit down and talk. And we were able to find ways that we could work together if we could. And sometimes we couldn't, and we just agree to disagree. But it was helpful. We did that in Georgetown as well. That's where I got the idea from the county administrator there. And, you know, we were able to do some joint projects where we could work together. So, you know, there's always opportunities out there. And, you know, it's helpful if we're pulling together instead of working against each other. And, you know, I've already had one area city manager reach out to me. We'll go to lunch first week I'm there. And so I'll start reaching out to everyone. And, you know, on the city side, I work through the Georgia Municipal League. And, yeah, I'll just get to learn folks. I've always been a part of my state association in South Carolina. I was president of South Carolina City County Managers Association, on the board forever, and part of ICMA as well. You know, one of my friends, Alan Hours, is down in Brunswick. Got a message from him today, welcome me to Georgia. So, you know, got friends in the business, so they'll help. I'll make the connections quick.
So another question, how familiar are you with lawsuits that the city is involved with right now?
Not at all, but I know that's part of the business. So
I'm sure you've dealt with several in your career, right?
Yes. Many, 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 many. Yes. So
All right.
you can't avoid them all.
So we're coming up to the hour. Is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? You know, feel free to raise your hand in the bottom, you know, with the raise hand icon at the bottom. If you have anything, council members, any of you have anything to say? Oh, Miss O'Connor. Dawn, I am unmuting you, or trying to. Okay, there you go.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I have a question. I was thinking about you being a Tucker guy and going to Shamrock. My kids are about your age and went to Sequoia in the same time that you're talking about. My question is, Buford Highway has certainly changed a lot. You talked about the good things, but there are some things that aren't so good about Buford Highway either. So my question to you is, how would you envision you helping to recruit some business to come into some of our big vacant properties that are just sitting, the old Kmart property and others that are just, looks like they're very valuable property, but they're just sitting. So could you give us your ideas on how you plan to go about that kind of thing?
Yes. I mean, retail's a challenge. You know, I talked to developers down here. Filling big boxes is tough. So you see some creative uses. I could see some going back to a residential use. It's hard to find the big box retailers in. You also can look and target specific retailers. You got to think like they do. What market share's out there? You know, if you've got certain grocery stores at each end or this, that, you know, what do we not have to serve the community? What could you do to bring people in? But it's a tough time. You know, and I don't know where the economy is going to go the next 6 months to a year. And that could be, you know, further headwinds when it comes to, you know, large projects and large investments, as far as that capital still being there. But, you know, I've seen some big box, they become Planet Fitness, you know, indoor go-kart tracks. I mean, there's, you know, it's, you know, retail, they're trying to be creative. One of the largest ones down here, Burrs and Chapin, is a huge developer at the beach, but they also have properties in Florida, Savannah, and one of my friends works with them, Tony Cox. I mean, they're racking their brains too on how to keep retail relevant and to keep people going out. So it's all about experiential retail and how to make that happen. So it's definitely a challenge. You know, some of those things, it's, you know, just trying does help. I mean, even back when I was in Liberty, I mean, we begged and pleaded. We finally found the right guy at Ingles, and he knew Mr. Ingle, and we got him to town and, you know, pointed out where the other grocery stores were and just the demographics, and he sold them on it. So, you know, sometimes it just takes trying and using a little logic. You know, and even in our instance, sometimes they'll check you off just looking at the population of Doraville and not, you know, radius 5-10 miles, things like that. So it's a challenge. I won't tell you it's easy, but you do the best you can. And, you know, having a reliable partner in the city does make a difference. They read the papers, they do their research. You know, they want to go in a place that's stable and easy to work with. I hope I answered your question a little bit.
Thanks.
So there's one other question. Actually, I guess we got a couple, but one last question that they've been emailing me that I didn't ask yet, but this first one is asking specifically about Honeysuckle Park, but I think the question can apply to multiple parks. I think that there's a lot of parks with playground that's in rough shape, and you know, what's your approach going to be to looking at some of this infrastructure and trying to make sure that we bring it back up to where it should be.
I'd like to come in and present council with a plan. I mean, it may have to be a multi-year plan where we hit each park and do it right. I'd like to make each one right instead of just doing a little bit here and there. That had been my experience in Georgetown. We went through, we had like a 5-year plan, and we upgraded every park with new playground equipment, did the rosin rubberized surface under all of it. So we wouldn't have to be dragging mulch in there every 6 months to a year. And, and council was good. Council stayed committed to it. And, you just need the trust of the community that, all right, we're third in line, but we're in line, and it's going to happen. So, get it done. And then to make sure that we properly maintain it from then on. Just riding around, I saw, there is some older equipment, look like just some maintenance issues and just management of vegetation and things like that. And so some of it's not costly, just get, a little elbow grease and getting to work with a weed eater and cutting things back. But then when it comes back to equipment needs and what council would like to see, we can cost that out and come up with a plan and budget that over time.
Okay. So any other question? I see some comments in the chat, but not necessarily questions. Any other questions that anyone has? Mr. Poe, I'm unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is a follow-up to Don's question. It's very perplexing, and I'm a new resident of Doraville, having moved here just a year ago, with the hopes and anticipation of Doraville really developing into something that all of our neighbors have developed into. So if you just look south to Chamblee, north to Peachtree Corners, west to Dunwoody, you see unbelievable development and great success, even in these trying times. So what would be your approach to find out, why have they been so successful while Doraville has been so stagnant and unable to achieve the same things that their neighbors, I mean, we're talking about, less than a mile apart. Why is Doraville getting left out?
I mean, one of the things I would do if they were willing to share with me is contact a few of those developers. And it's not hard to go back and track the owners of those projects and ask them why they chose to develop in Chamblee instead of Doraville. What was the impediment to me, or what was the hesitation? Is it something that the city's doing to not make it attractive to them? What are the issues? So I said that's going to the people that are making the decision. I think that's the best way to find out. As long as they'll give us an honest answer, and I don't know why they wouldn't.
Great. Any other questions out there? All right. Chris, do you wanna wrap things up? I know you're starting on July 6th, so we're all excited for you to be coming out here.
Yes, sir. I'm getting in my last mountain biking trip before then, so I'll be raring to go. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm hearing from old friends and that are still in the area, and so yeah, it'll be cool. It's fun. Obviously we got a lot of work to do. I'm excited about building a team because I definitely have that opportunity, and ready to get to work.
All right, great. Well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for everyone who has come out for this meeting. Really appreciate the attendance, and join me in welcoming Chris when he gets started on July 6th. Thank you all. And if you do have anything that you need to reach out to me or Chris about right now, feel free to email me at mayor@doravillega.us.
Yeah,
thanks a lot.
I've got a city address now too, just
All right. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.